Welcome to the Behind the Girl Boss podcast, where every woman's journey takes center stage. Join us in this safe space as we explore the ins and outs of business, career, mental health, the music industry, and more. Whether you're a go-getter or a dream chaser, we've got stories for you. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok for an exclusive backstage pass. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and entertained. Welcome to the ride. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to the podcast. So today we have another guest with us and we have Sydney. So hi Sydney.
Hi.
Thanks so much for coming on. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, of course. My name is Sydney Cason. I am 30. I'm a full-time travel content creator, mostly solo travel, but I also lead queer group trips, mostly WLW, Sapphic group trips around the world.
I love that. I'm excited to dive into all that with you. To start off, what kind of inspired you to start creating content and how has your journey evolved over time?
Yeah, I started making content honestly because I was bored at my day job. Take that as you will. I wanted to learn a new skill. I was bored. I had all this free time. It was right after COVID. We're all working from home, and I felt like I wasn't being utilized to my full potential at work. So I thought to myself, how can I add to my skill set? And TikTok was, this is 2022. So TikTok was all I was doing in my free time. And I thought to myself, if other people can do this, so can I. Why not? And I started making day in the life vlogs with my ex-fiance, who we're obviously not together anymore, but started making content with her. And that's how I really found my niche in the queer community and sharing my life being lesbian.
Yeah, I love that. And how do you kind of stay authentic to yourself while still navigating like the pressures of social media?
It's interesting. I feel like when I meet new people or people who are interested in content creation, this is one of the first things that they ask. And for me, it's never been a question of authenticity, how I present myself, because I don't have time to be anyone other than who I am.
Yes.
So it just seems way harder to lead a double life online, and there are plenty of people who do that. But for me and for actually like quite a bit of content creators who at least are in the queer circle, we
Mhm.
just don't have time to be anything other than who we are.
Yeah. And talking about your like lesbian identity, what was your kind of like coming out story and how did you kind of figure out that you were a lesbian?
It was TikTok for sure. The great 2020 awakening.
Hmm.
I really did not have any thoughts to myself growing up of whether or not I was queer.
Hmm.
Whether that is what most people experience or not, that is true and authentic to me. It was 2020 and my whole TikTok feed was just women thirst traps.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, I was dating a man at this point. I was like, what does this mean? What does this mean for myself? And that relationship came to a close. And pretty immediately after, I was like, I think I need to explore this side of
Hmm.
myself. And luckily, I lived in Washington, D.C., very, very queer friendly city. All of my friends, very liberal. My parents, very liberal. So I didn't have much worry about coming out, I had a very, very privileged coming out experience in that fact. But yeah, I told my parents on a family vacation to Hawaii, right before COVID hit,
Hmm.
and told my friends not long after, and they were all very, very supportive of me. And yeah, I wouldn't be here without their support, honestly. I have so much. I just want to give everyone a hug who who has not had a safe space to come out because I don't know where I would be without my people.
Yeah, for sure. And going off that, we kind of have like similar-ish stories. So growing up, I did identify as bisexual when I was like 13, 14, and I dated men the whole time. And I was just in a 7-year relationship with a man, and then I was like, oh, like actually I think I'm a lesbian. And it kind of had to do with like social media too, and just like kind of like embracing that side of me more. And then I was like, okay, like actually like I only like women. Was it ever like kind of confusing to you? How was I with a man for this long and everything? Because that's like something that I experienced too. Because I was like so confused. I was like, how do I identify as a lesbian when I was with like men for so long? So did that ever like happen to you?
For sure. And I think sometimes I still have those thoughts that it has to be so
Hmm.
normal. When I first came out, I came out as bisexual, as I feel most people
Yes.
do. Because if you were dating the opposite gender at that point, then
Hmm.
yeah, you're gonna automatically kind of fall into that. It
Yeah.
wasn't until a couple years into my first relationship with a woman that I unpacked my comp het and unpacked everything that society had kind of told me was right about relationships and right about relationships,
Mhm.
and really, really analyzed and processed how I walk through the world. And yeah, I think so much of it was comp het. And I think even to this day, I still have thoughts of, am I lesbian? Am I bisexual? Am I pan? Am I queer? How do I like to identify? And from all the people that I've talked to in the LGBTQ space, I feel like it is more common than not to continuously have these ideas come up of how do I want to identify?
Hmm.
How do I want to label myself? Do I want to label myself? So, yeah, I think that's totally normal, and I am ever evolving and ever changing, but for me at
Hmm.
this time I definitely identify as a lesbian.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I always say like sexuality is so fluid because I feel like I've labeled myself as every single thing possible at one point.
Mm.
And now like I do feel secure in like being a lesbian. But for your content wise, when you first started off, how has like being open about your sexuality kind of influenced the community you've built? And have you ever, I'm sure you have, but have you ever had comments kind of either like hating on it or like saying crazy stuff? Because I've seen crazy stuff. So how have you dealt with that as well?
Yeah, when it comes to people saying crazy stuff online, I think I just expect it, honestly.
Hmm.
When you commit to putting yourself online and opening yourself up to other people's opinions, you are opening yourself up to a life of forever being misunderstood on some level. And that's particularly vulnerable as a queer person where you
Hmm.
walk through life and you're probably misunderstood in how you live your life, even by people you do know. So I really try to just not let it get to me. My friends, the only people I care about opinion wise are people who have my phone number, who I talk to
Hmm.
on a daily basis. And anyone else, I can only show up as my authentic self online, as my true self online. And if people are going to make crazy comments or second guess who I am, it's none of my business.
100%. And what's something that you wish more people understood about like the lesbian experience or like the women loving woman experience?
That's such a great question. Ooh, that we are just humans like everyone
Hmm.
else. I think at the end of the day, we all want very, very similar things. We all want to
Yeah.
feel understood. We all want love and companionship and a roof over our heads and food and enough money to live a lifestyle that brings us comfort and peace and joy. And I think it's so common for WLW relationships to be hypersexualized online and in real life. And yeah, I think for me, I just wish that more people who are not a part of this world would just kind of see us as human. Like we're the same people as the rest of the world. We just happen to love the same gender, you know?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And how do you kind of stay grounded in your identity in spaces that may not always feel safe or welcoming to queer people?
Yeah, that's huge while traveling. I studied Arabic in college, and I've done quite a bit of travel throughout the Middle East, which is very well known to not be super pro homosexuality.
Yeah.
It's illegal in a lot of places, illegal, punishable by death in a lot of places. And I traveled to those places when I still considered myself straight, but since then, I have traveled to quite a few other places that are not particularly kind to the LGBTQ community. And I think how I stay grounded truly is by centering myself in my community, even when I'm not there physically. And that's what's so beautiful about being online and having close friendships. I can rely on them. I know where I feel seen and where I feel heard, where I feel understood, and leaning on those people, even if it's through my phone, through FaceTime, my community online, sharing my thoughts, feelings over Instagram stories or lives or whatever it is, helps me feel grounded when I'm not feeling understood or safe in a place that I'm visiting.
Yeah. Do you always have to like do research before going to like see the vibes of the space?
For sure. I always show up and do research beforehand when it comes to safety. I
Hmm.
now have traveled so much that I don't necessarily show up with a plan of what I want to see, but safety is so, so important. So I will always make sure that I am staying at least in I love staying in hostels for that reason because it's usually you've got people surrounding you, so you're not as vulnerable as if you're just like staying in an Airbnb alone. But for sure, the safety aspect is so important.
Hmm. And when you say like you stay in hostels, I've never stayed in a hostel. Do you choose like women only hostels or how do you like choose which ones to stay at? Because like they kind of intimidate me a little bit, but I feel like it'd be fine if I went, but what's that like?
There's going to be good hostels and there's going to be really bad ones. I've stayed in some for only a night, or I've shown up and I've been like absolutely
Hmm.
not staying here. But there's not a lot of only female hostels. There are a lot of, I never stay in a shared mixed dorm with men, to be honest.
Hmm.
Just safety, comfortability
Yeah.
wise, not for me. So I always choose if I'm choosing a dorm, I'm choosing an all women's dorm, but I tend to actually choose the private rooms in hostels because
Okay.
then you get the community aspect where you're still meeting people, you can do the shared activities, but you can end the night going to your own room. I love hostels. I highly recommend them to everyone. They're so affordable. If you're solo traveling, it's a great way to meet people. And I've met some of my like very, very close friends via staying in hostels. And now we've met in one place and we're traveling to another place together. So I'm a big proponent for it.
I love that. And talking about solo travel, what kind of drew you to start solo traveling in the first place?
Gosh, I've always wanted to. I don't know what it is. I feel like in college, I knew graduating high school, going to college, that I wanted to travel. And I
Hmm.
knew I wanted to study abroad. I studied abroad the very first semester that I could in college, which was first semester sophomore year. I didn't care where I went, and I knew I wanted to go, which is why I ended up studying abroad in Morocco, and that's where I started taking Arabic and learning about the Arab world. But yeah, when it comes to solo travel, I think I've just always been a very independent person. I've never been the type of person where I feel uncomfortable eating alone, where I feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable doing things I love alone, and a lot of people do, and that's fine. Everyone has different levels of comfortability, but I think I've always felt very comfortable and safe in my own skin and trust myself to move throughout the world in a way that is kind and compassionate, but also taking safety precautions. So for solo travel, I'm like, I can do this. I've been able to do everything else in my life. I can do this too. And I am such a big believer in every woman, queer person, human getting out there and taking some sort of solo trip at some point because it changes you. You learn to trust yourself.
Hmm. What was your first like solo trip that you went on?
I started a lot of solo trips in college when I had my car, but not necessarily to somewhere extravagant. Like I would take myself
Mhm.
on a weekend trip somewhere, like outside of where my college was.
Yeah.
My first international trip, honestly, my first like real solo trip, I took myself to Hawaii, which I don't suggest doing that now. Hawaiians
Yeah.
have said, do not come here, so I will not go to Hawaii. But this was years ago. My first solo trip was to Hawaii, and I did that because I love the kayak explore function. I don't know if you've ever used that. It's an amazing tool. You can go into it's kayak.com/explore, and you can say I'm leaving from this point, and I only want to spend $300. Where can I go? And so I found a trip to Hawaii for $300, and I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
And I had a blast there, and I was like, I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep taking myself on solo trips. So yeah, that was my first one though.
Yeah. And can you share one solo trip that like completely changed your perspective or kind of really pushed you out of your comfort zone? Because you seem like a person that you said like you like doing things alone and everything, but what's something that really pushed you out of that comfort zone?
Honestly, this one that I just finished, 3 months in Southeast Asia, I wouldn't say that it necessarily pushed me out of my comfort zone, but it was my longest stretch. So it
Mhm.
was 3 months solo, and I feel like when you take like a week or two long solo trip, you kind of know at the end of that you're going back to things that are comfortable to you. You're going back to
Mhm.
your creature comforts. This one being 3 months living out of a backpack, changing locations every 3 or 4 days, the weather being drastically different in one place versus another, and being 12-hour time difference from my community back home. I felt particularly isolated the last 3 months, and I didn't happen to meet as many people as I would have liked. So I did quite a bit of the 3 months very, very alone.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was beautiful. It was life-changing. Southeast Asia is gorgeous and so safe. I was not catcalled one time in Vietnam,
Love
Thailand,
that.
or Cambodia. Not once. I felt so safe. So I think it was more of like a mental challenge for me of
Yeah.
feeling very, very isolated, but
Yeah.
life-changing. I can trust myself and I know I can do hard things.
For sure. And before we started recording, you said that you're in Milan right now. I also saw on like your Instagram that you sold your place and now you kind of just live everywhere. How has that
Mhm.
kind of been for you? And also, you're from the States, right?
Yeah.
How does that kind of work like visa wise as well to be able to like live out of the country for so long?
Yeah, so I sold everything in May and I am just kind of bopping around
Hmm.
because I'm not on a digital nomad visa. I'm not on any particular visa. I'm really just staying in places as long as I'm allowed to. So in Europe, you can only be in Europe in the Schengen zone for 90 days out of a 180-day calendar period, and it's rolling. So I have an app on my phone called, it's like Schengen laws or something like that, and you can plug in the days that you're going to be in Europe or in one of those zones, and it tells you exactly when you need to leave. So that's typically what I do for making sure I'm not overstaying my welcome in Italy with my parents. But yeah, when you're solo traveling, there's so many countries that you can travel to as an American visa free. Again, it's a very, very privileged place to be in. Who knows how much longer we'll have that privilege as Americans with our current
Hmm.
administration. I foresee things probably changing in the future. But yeah, in Southeast Asia, every single country I went to required a 30-day visa. So I was like, okay, I'll stay here for 30 days and then move on to the next one. But it's tiring packing up and moving all of your things. It's been a very beautiful year in a lot of ways. It's also been very hard, very
Hmm.
eye-opening. And at 30, selling all of your things and living out of a backpack most of the time, I wish I would have done it sooner, definitely in my early 20s, but better late than never.
Yeah, for sure. And what are some like lessons you've learned about yourself through solo traveling in this lifestyle?
I was just talking with one of my best friends about this, and it's so interesting. I've wanted this life for so long to travel full time and to solo
Hmm.
travel. And coming up on a year, I've naturally been reflecting on what my biggest lessons have been, what I've loved about it, what I've disliked about it. And I'll never regret this time period of my life. Absolutely not, because I've always wanted this. But I think what I have learned is how the point of life for me really is community.
Hmm.
And I miss my friends so much on a daily basis. And thank God I have these group trips because I get to be around the queer community
Yeah.
so often. And that's what keeps me going because I just love it. But yeah, I think one of my biggest lessons I've learned is that like this is not a forever thing, that this is a 2 or 3 year long thing. And then I want to be back with my friends. I want to be back with my
Yeah.
community because that is what brings me like even more joy than seeing the world is having such close friendships and community around me.
Yeah, for sure. And talking about your group trips, what inspired you to start creating group trips specifically for the queer community?
So a travel company reached out to me called Trova Trip, back in December of 2023, and they asked me if I wanted to lead an influencer-led trip. I turned them down initially because I was like, I'm just some guy. Like, no one's gonna want to travel with me. That's crazy. Crazy ass. So I turned them down. They came back to me a month later and they're like, we really think that your community would want to travel. Like, you should send out this questionnaire, see how many people fill it out. If people are interested, then let's talk about running a trip. If not, no harm, no foul. I sent out the questionnaire and 800 people filled it out.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. That's really cool. And this is back when I had my full-time job.
Hmm.
So I planned my first trip to Costa Rica. So this was December. I launched my group trip, my first one to Costa Rica, June of last year, so June 2024, and it sold out in like an hour. 20 spots. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is crazy. Okay, I could do this." And this was at a time, December of 23 is when I decided I was going to pack up and leave the US in May. So all of this was kind of forming around the same
Yeah.
time. And after that first trip sold out, I was like, oh my gosh, I should do this while I'm traveling. Like this is a way to build community. And mind you, this company did not say I had to make it queer only. I just decided for myself. I was like,
Mhm.
why would I host anything different? Like I would want this to be for only sapphic folks, only queer and be trans folks. I would not want this to be like a straight ally trip.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've just kind of taken off. I had no idea that they would. And I just feel so honored that people trust me enough as
Mhm.
someone in their phone to spend money and their time to come on trips with me. But there is not a day that goes by that I don't take it, I just don't take it for granted whatsoever.
For sure.
It's
And now, like your group trips, are they still with that company or do you do them by yourself?
Most of them are with this company. I am branching out and working with a couple of new companies in 2026, but my hope is to open my own travel business 2027, launching my own trips that I've personally curated, that I am leading or other queer folks are hosting that are only for the LGBTQ community.
I love that. That sounds so fun. I would definitely join one of them. Um, how often do these group trips happen?
So I have to launch them between like 7 to 9 months in advance. So back when they first reached out to me, I wanted the first one to do well, and I wanted to know that this company was legit before
Mhm.
fully booking out and booking 15 trips with them, and then having that first one and being like, oh shit, this is not good. So after the first one went well is when I launched the second one, which was to Italy last November. So there was quite a bit of time between the first and second one because I wanted to make sure things were going to go well.
Hmm.
Then the next one I launched was February of this last year. And now, because I kind of have a rhythm and I'm like, okay, I trust this company, it's going really well. I know what to expect to be a good host. I know what people are expecting when they come on these trips. I want to make them the best trip they've ever been on. Now I'm ramping up to do them quite often. So this summer, I have 4 trips within 3 months and just launched two more trips. One is co-hosted with another lesbian creator, the Lesbian Passport. Her name is Alyssa, and that's to Peru in August. And then I just sold out a trip to Iceland this upcoming November. So it's very sporadic, but in
Yeah,
2026, I'm hoping to have around 8 or 9 group trips that year.
so fun. And how do you make it? Okay, so like for me, for example, if I came solo on these trips, I am very like introverted and shy at the beginning. So how do you kind of make everyone feel comfortable? Do you have like welcome events or something? I know some people have like welcome dinners and stuff, so how does that work?
Yeah, I before I quit my job to travel full time, I actually was a professional event planner. So I actually have used quite a bit of my knowledge from that and just I love hosting in real life and I'm one of those like connector friends where I don't just like keeping my own bubble. I'll meet someone new and I'll be like, you need to meet this person or you need to, you need to meet this person. I love introducing people and bringing people together. It just comes very naturally to me. So with these group trips, for me, I'm a firm believer the trip starts the second you sign up. The trip does not start when you land in the new country. So I want those 6 to 9 months before you go on the trip for you to feel engaged, for you to feel like you're knowing the other people who are coming on the
Mhm.
trip. So I put everyone in a group chat as soon as the trip is confirmed and all the final payments have been made, which is usually the 90-day mark out before the trip. Put everyone in a group chat. I set up a group call by region. Like, so if you're in California, that time zone, Mountain time zone, Eastern time zone, people get to know people in their time zones. And then right before leaving, we do a big pre-departure call. And the group chats are always like so fun and crazy before the trip. People come in ready to meet people, and that's the whole point. And then the first night of the actual group trip, I always try to do some sort of like welcome drinks with either mocktails or cocktails. So a lot of people don't drink these days, which is totally
Mhm.
fine. And help people get to know each other. So I like to do a, it's kind of cheesy, but I do a 3 to 3 minute, like 3 on 3 minute conversation where I pair people with someone else in the group. And I'm like, okay, I want all of us to come into this trip as active listeners. People are from all over the world. People come from all different backgrounds. Some people are shy, some people are extroverted. So each person gets 3 minutes to talk, and the other person cannot interrupt. Introduce yourself, share what you'd like, get to know the other person, and then swap. And I feel like that's been, people have loved this exercise as a way to like get to know each other on the first day. But to your other point about coming in, probably being shy and introverted, I'm a big advocate for if you're not feeling up to one of the activities on a certain day, don't go. Take the time to yourself, have a few hours on your own, go to bed early. Don't feel like you have to come to every single activity. I want people to know that they have the freedom to opt out of things on these trips.
Yeah, I love that. And if someone's listening to this right now and they're interested in potentially going on another trip, how would you kind of describe the vibe of these trips? Like, what can people expect when they join one?
Yeah, it's a great, it really depends on the location.
Hmm.
I always try to market these trips based on the vibe it's going to be. So, Thailand was very much like we're going to drag shows, like we're doing food tours, a little bit more like high speed, like be
Yeah.
prepared to like do a ton of stuff, go out to some bars, do some food tours, that kind of stuff. Whereas my Greece trip is really geared towards people who want to show up and just relax. Like we're doing, we're going to a winery, we're doing some walks around Athens, very chill, a beach day, that kind of stuff. So I recommend just kind of staying up to date with the trips as I launch them and paying attention to the itinerary and seeing if the itinerary kind of fits how you like to travel. And that's a big thing for me is I know that there are so many different types of travelers. So I like to offer all different types of trips to kind of
Yeah.
make it worth it for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. So the last minute podcast asked people on Instagram to ask questions, and I picked two of my favorite ones. So the first one is, what's a destination you visited that completely exceeded your expectations?
Ooh, Cambodia, for sure. I am big on meditation,
Hmm.
and I was meditating one day now almost 2 years ago. It was right after I found out my ex-fiance was having an affair. It was a few months before our wedding. And I was meditating, asking myself, like, where do I go? What do I do next? Well, like, literally, what do I do with my life? I'm so lost. And I heard a voice in my head say Cambodia. Don't know why, but I also listened to that. I listened to my gut instinct. I knew nothing about Cambodia and I purposefully did no research on it before I went because I was like, there's something there for me. I don't know
Hmm.
what, but there's something there for me. And Cambodia is just one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to. The people, Cambodian people have been through so much in the last 40 years. The genocide that happened in the 80s is very apparent in the way that Cambodian people still live their life and they treat people with such respect and kindness and compassion. And the food is incredible there. The energy in Cambodia is just beautiful. It blew me out of the water, and I highly recommend if anyone gets the chance, while they're in Southeast Asia to go there because a lot of people skip over it and they completely decide not to go and they should.
Yeah, I love that. I'll add that to my list of places I want to go
Yeah.
to as well. And then the last one is you spoke a little bit about this, but we'll go in a little bit more detail. How do you deal with a burnout or homesickness when you're on the road for a long time?
It's very hard. I have been feeling burnt out a lot in the last couple months and very homesick in the last couple months, and it comes in waves. The only thing I can really do is connect with my people and connect
Hmm.
with my community and share how I'm feeling because vulnerability has done nothing for me but brought me closer to the people that I love. And when I'm feeling extremely burnt out and lost and homesick, I reach out to the people who I know are willing to be there for me and help. So whether
Hmm.
that's my best friends, etc. But then also trying to find comforts in what makes you comfortable. So for me, this is crazy, but I'm having a moment of like total crash out right now in my personal life. And how I'm dealing with that is my comfort food is Chipotle. And I obviously am not in the US to get
Hmm.
Chipotle. And I Googled it, and the only place in the world outside of the US that has Chipotle is London. So I booked a flight for literally a few days from now
As
just
you
to go to
should.
London to get Chipotle because I'm burnt out and I need something familiar and comforting. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. And I think it's so cool too, being like in Europe, like the flights to travel within like Europe and like the UK is so much cheaper than if you were to go from the States. So I definitely would have done the same thing, honestly.
Like 70 euros on Ryanair, sign me up. I'm
Yeah.
there. Give me that
Yeah.
Chipotle.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, that's all I had for you today. So thank you so much again for coming on and sharing your story and everything. Before you leave, do you want to shout out any of your socials, where people can find you, where they can potentially book a trip?
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok and Instagram. My handle is at Sydney Cason with two N's, Casonn. And to book a trip, I would say you can either go. Actually, I think the best place to go is definitely just the link in my bio on either TikTok or Instagram. I have my link tree there, and you can search all of the different trips that I'm hosting. They do say sold out right now, but there's always people who drop. So adding your name to any of those wait lists and yeah, just staying up to date with usually my Instagram stories, which is where I launch all of my trips first.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for coming on.
Thank you, Amanda. It was so nice chatting with you.